will work out. Wouldn't you say that? It's like, oh, I don't know what kind of trouble you got in, especially sisters and brothers. I'm like, you're going to get in trouble, right? That's all you do. But Adam loved Eve so much that he couldn't think about living eternity without Eve. He'd rather live a lifetime with Eve. So what did he do? When Eve offered that apple to Adam, he took it. He took Eve's sin with him. And that's how much Adam loved Eve. Now, one thing that we need to really be careful about is the point about this story is that, yes, it's great that, you know what, human fall, and then now we start having offspring and all the pain and things came into the picture. But think about it. How much Adam must have loved to give up his eternity, his relationship with God, to be in the Garden of Eden without having to worry about anything. He gave up all that to be with the person that he loved. Can you think of a person who did exactly that? Jesus, wasn't it? If you look at it, Bible sets Adam as a type of Jesus. In that story that we tell our kids all the time, Adam represents how much he loves Eve by taking that sin. And Jesus did exactly the same because he took our sin. He loved us so much, he came down to earth. Adam loved Eve so much that he was willing to give up his eternity and the good and the relationship that he had with God and came down with Eve. And that is the reason why Adam and Eve was able to have offsprings, and using that, God was able to save our mankind again from the offspring of Adam. What would have happened if Adam said, you know what, you did this, you're on your own, I'm going to enjoy my time with God? Eve would have been done. Eve would have been done, and there would have been no offspring. We wouldn't be sitting here today. So Bible portrays Adam as a type of Jesus, right? Now, if you look at Romans chapter 5, verse 14, it says, nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over those who had not sinned according to the likeness of transgression of Adam, who is a type of him who was to come. It says it clearly in the Bible that Adam was type of Jesus, of someone who was about to come. Paul knew exactly what he was talking about. So God knew about Jesus' coming before he wrote all this. When he was writing Genesis, he knew about Romans chapter 5, verse 14. It also said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21, For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. If it wasn't for Adam taking Eve's sin and becoming sin with Adam, coming down to Eve's level, if it wasn't because of that, we would have had no offspring, and Jesus would not have been possible. And therefore, mankind would have been doomed. But because of Adam's love, because of Christ's love for us, they came down to the level of sinners, us. Just so that we can become righteousness of God with him. Now, in the portrayals of Adam as a type of Jesus, and because Adam came down to Eve, like I said, he was able to have offspring, and Jesus came. Even though Jesus was 100% human, he was also 100% God, and we call him always Son of God, isn't it? Right? Who was the only person in the Bible that was Son of God? And when I say Son of God, that means a direct creation. For example, in Job, they say sons of God was joyous. And when they say sons of God, they were talking about angels, because angel was directly created by the hands of God. We are son of men. Who was the only person in the Bible that was Son of God? It was Adam, wasn't it? Do you see the parallel between Adam and Jesus? Adam was a type of Jesus. Adam was a Son of God. And when we understand that, we can actually look at John chapter 1, verse 11 to 13, it says, He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. Because of Jesus, because of Son of God, Adam gave up his right to have that eternity and came down and had offspring. He was the reasons why Jesus was able to be on this earth, to be able to take our sin and let us be children of God. Before we accepted Christ, we were son of men. Your father and your mother, your grandparents, right? The moment we took Christ, because of what Jesus did for us, we became children or direct son of God and daughters of God. Do we see the power in that? Isn't that amazing how he can actually design all this? Now, a second type that I'm going to share with you is in Numbers. If you look at Numbers chapter 21, verse 8 to 9, it says, Then the Lord said to Moses, Make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole. And it shall be that everyone who is bitten, when he looks at it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze shepherd and put it on the pole, and so it was. If a serpent had bitten anyone, when he looked at the bronze serpent, he lived. If you look at it, this is the wilderness, okay? They had almost no shelter, but God was taking care of them. And there were no medical cares. There's nothing that helps them. If they were bitten by a snake, there's nothing that helped them to survive. So God gave Moses a command, and he asked them to build this bronze serpent, put it on a pole, and say, if you look at that, you're going to live. But serpent, what does it represent? What does it represent in the Bible? The devil, the Satan. Isn't the Satan's symbol a serpent? But why would God ask everybody in the wilderness to look at devil's symbol and say, oh, I'm healed? Did God just command them to be devil worshiper? Most probably not. And that is the reason why we always have to look at Old Testament and understand Old Testament in order for us to grasp what he really meant in the New Testament. Because if you go to New Testament, John chapter 3 verse 14 it said, And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. When Jesus was dying on the cross, what did he put on the cross for us? Not only about the Ten Commandments, like Nick was preaching about the grace, but not only that, he defeated devil, and he put the devil on the cross. All the negative things that we know, all the sickness that we know, he took it with him, or somebody who didn't sin, took every single sin that you know in this earth, took it and was on the cross. Do you see the parallel between the Old Testament and the New Testament and how delicately designed it was? He knew about John. He knew what John was going to write before he started designing the entire Bible. Do you see this? Do you see the parallelism in here? Are you ready for one more? Let's look at the book of Torah. The book of Torah is made out of 5 books of Moses, right? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Okay, and Torah in Hebrew, and since the Hebrew was everything was written in Hebrew, we have to go back to Hebrew words, right? The Torah in Hebrew is written with 4 letters, equivalent to our T or our H. Okay, now if you look at Genesis, I had a hard time finding this, and by the end of this, I mastered how to do all these Hebrew characters in PowerPoint. Here is your Genesis, okay, in Hebrew. First 4 verses in Hebrew. Now, if you go to the first tau, which is the last alphabet in Hebrew, okay? Now, from the first tau, we're going to take the first tau. You count 49 letters. Notice how 49 letters is 7 squared, 7 times 7, okay? You count 49 letters, and you go to Rev. It's the equivalent of our R. And then you count 49 letters again, and you get a Resh. And then you count 49 letters again, and you get our Hey. As you know, we read it from right to left, and once you read it, it becomes T-O-R-H, which is your letters in Hebrew for spelling Torah. Coincidence? 49 letter gaps. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. Whatever probability it may be to have this done, it could be possible.